My name is Johnetta Brazzell, proud class of 1968, Spelman College. And when I came to Spelman, I came from a rural community that was called the Promised Land. This was an unincorporated area. It was an area of black farmers, land that my grandfather had acquired. And I left that community and always knew I was coming to Spelman because my grandmother attended Spelman at the turn of the century, before Spelman was a college. And my sister had come to Spelman before me, and so I knew I was always coming to Spelman. When I arrived at Spelman, I thought I was coming very, very prepared for what I was going to experience. In high school, or just growing up, I'd been exposed to books. I was a reader. I loved to read. I was the current events queen of my school. I mean, I knew all the stuff that was going on in the world, so I thought I was fully prepared for this experience at Spelman. What I didn't know was what I didn't know. And what I was exposed to through my Spelman experience was what I could not have anticipated. This was all at the time, of course, 1964 to 1968, a time when the world was in turmoil. I thought I knew what was going on in the world, but I didn't know. What I was exposed to at Spelman was new information, new ways of thinking. I learned to think critically at Spelman, working with the faculty that I was exposed to and the environment that I was in a way that I had not been exposed to that before. I was exposed to information that I didn't have, and to learn how to understand that information, to learn how to manage that information, create new ideas, was something that was just life-altering for me. There's just no other way to say it. It was life-altering for me. I learned about the history of African Americans in a way that I'd never been exposed to it before. I learned about the history of this country in a way that I'd never been exposed to it before. And again, how to think critically about about the information that I was being exposed to. The person who was most influential to me at Spelman was Dr. Vincent Harding, who was the chair of the history department. I really didn't know what I was going to major in when I got to Spelman, so I was open to whatever came my way. But taking my history classes, and especially the classes from Dr. Harding, were absolutely life-changing for me. He was very active in the civil rights movement, an excellent historian. He's the reason I became a historian. He's the reason I went to the University of Chicago when I graduated from Spelman. I teach the way he taught, and my exposure to him was just an incredible experience. He's the one, mostly at Spelman, who taught me to think critically. And we always had to write papers in his class. And you'd get your paper back and it would just be bleeding red because he'd gone through with a red pen, and he'd ask why. Why? You had to explain yourself, you had to explain your ideas. And so the notion of going to graduate school was something that I had never entertained. I didn't know anything about graduate school. The push in my community was that you go to college and then you leave and probably go into the classroom. But I was exposed again to different ideas and different ways of coming to what I could become, who I could become. And so I became a history major, and I went to graduate school immediately after I graduated from Spelman at the University of Chicago. And so I will forever treasure the way that I was exposed to information and to people who cared about me. And they prepared me in a way to deal with what I found in the world when I left Spelman. When I went to the University of Chicago, that was the first time I had gone to school with whites, because I came through a segregated system, as did everybody else, pretty much, in my class. But Spelman had prepared me for that experience, in the sense that it taught me about who I was, who I am, and what I had to offer. And people who were looking at me critically for being in this white space, it did not intimidate me and did not deter me from what I had to do, because I had been prepared by my Spelman experience.
Tell me about, since you're a historian, in '64, when you started school, what was society like? What was society like in '68 when Dr. King died? Tell me about what was going on here around campus.
Okay. Well, as I said, when I entered Spelman in 1964, we were still living in a segregated society. The community that I came from, this small town, rural community, was totally segregated. That didn't happen. The desegregation didn't begin until sometime later. By the time Atlanta had begun the change when we were coming in to Spelman. I can remember the first time I went to the theater, the Rialto was the theater downtown. Atlanta had pretty much been integrated over the course of the 1968 to 1964 to 1968. And so by the time we graduated, by the time Dr. King was assassinated, there were these sea changes in this immediate area. But the world still had a long way to go in terms of the changes. The people who were in the civil rights movement, who were on the front line of the civil rights movement, would come to Atlanta, and so we had a chance to engage them and to interact with them, and to know what was happening in other parts of the country that we were not being exposed to. And so when we entered Spelman in 1964, the world was very different. It was on a different path in 1968 when we graduated. But we had been exposed to the pioneers who were making that change, and we had become agents of change ourselves.
If you sit down and you think from '68, you had the Poor People Campaign, if I'm not mistaken. Now we're coming up next year, it's 50th anniversary. They talked about jobs, poverty, economics. What has changed? What has changed? What needs to be done?
Everything and sometimes nothing has changed. We are not where we were. I mean, it would be not appropriate and not accurate for us to say we are in the same position we were in 1968 or 1964 when we entered Spelman. But it's also accurate to say that we're not where we intended to be, where we thought we would be. In so many ways, whether you're talking about the Poor People's Campaign, how society was being changed and moved about, we made some strides, but so many people have not been able to attain the level of achievement that we had hoped everyone would be able to achieve. When we just look at the schools are where black people are going. They're as segregated now almost as they were in 1968. And schools that's the portal to the lives that we all want to lead. And if that portal is not there for us in the way we wanted it to be there for us, it has tremendous consequences for how we are able to advance through the world or we're not able to advance through the world. And when the resources are not coming, as those resources are not coming, even now in 2017, it has a tremendous impact on the African American community. So again, we are not where we were, but we're not where we intended to be.
Were you here in Atlanta during the Jackson administration?
I'm trying to think. No, he came in after we graduated.
What do you see a change in your experience in terms of what we need to do as a community? Or what is it to bring the community together?
So much of it is an internal process as well as an external process. Again, going back to my own experience in Spelman, and the thing that it gave me was my sense of self, my sense of confidence in who I am. Because when I went to the University of Chicago, there were people, white people, looking at me because the university was just being integrated then. Okay, this was a new thing. We were at the vanguard of making changes in that institution as well. And there were people there who looked at me and wanted to know, how did I get here? And why was I here? And you don't deserve to be here. And that was very explicitly communicated to me. And what I did not do, what Spelman had given me, was the understanding of myself, to know that I had a right to be there. I had been prepared to be there, and I was going to be successful there. And it is very interesting because I spent 37 years, my career was in higher education. And with the exception of 5 years when I came back to Spelman as the Vice President for Student Affairs, all of my experience in higher education has been in white institutions. And what I observed in my career at these institutions was looking at black kids who had not had the kind of experience that I had had. Okay. I lived in Detroit for 18 years, and the institutions where I worked, looking at the kids coming in, the change in Detroit at that time was black people were moving into suburban communities because the Fair Housing Act had come about. There had been all of these changes structurally, which allowed black people to move to places where they were previously barred. And what I saw were black kids coming out of those communities into the university where I was working, where they had not been prepared at home for what they were going to experience when they got there. They had no sense of their history. They had no sense of themselves. Their parents were trying to protect them by not telling them about what the black experience had been about, and the lineage from which they had come. So they didn't know their own history. Therefore, they didn't know themselves. So when they got to the institutions where I was working, and whites pushed back on them that they didn't deserve to be there, they internalized that process. They internalized their own inferiority, that maybe I don't belong here, maybe I'm not smart enough, maybe I'm not this, maybe I'm not that. I didn't have any of that as I left Spelman because I was prepared.
Now, you're a gorgeous black woman. I like your hair. I like your whole persona. What is it about today's females? It got to be about the nails. It got to be that hair, that board hair. They don't know who the hell they are. Is that what is it? Help me.
I don't know that I can help you. It's an internal journey that we all have to make, and I get it. I understand that as young women who are just now breaking into the social, this level of their social development, it's still a society where women are judged by their looks. It's a society where, not just in the larger society, but certainly in the black community too. These are young women who are looking for soulmates and who are dating and who are doing all those things. And so what passes for attractiveness and what they need in order to attract mates is the hair and all the other stuff that goes with it. But what I'm encouraged by, because I'm on Spelman's campus 4 days a month. I come from a program a mentoring program that I conduct, and I've been doing it now for 8 years. You can't say that that's all of the women at Spelman, because it's not. And when you look at, they're all kind of natural hair styles, they're all kind of natural ways of being, far more so than when we graduated in 1968. I mean, and I didn't get my afro until I left Spelman. I didn't have the courage to do it while I was at Spelman. But I graduated in May, and one of the first things I did when I got to Chicago was to cut it off, to go natural. But there are very few of us who did that at that point. You go on campus now, and you see all manner of natural hair. You see the weaves, and you see all of that, but it's all manner of natural hair. Time and maturation will take care of that, because when you look at older black women now, they get to a point where it's like, I don't need to do this anymore. But that's an internal journey that each woman has to make. That's an internal journey. It's certainly formed by societal norms, but that's an internal journey that we all have to make. And some, it takes longer for someone to make that journey to the naturalness of, and some never do it. I don't make any judgment about that. Because I know women whose hair is not natural, who are forward-thinking women. So we can't judge them unharshly by where we want them to be externally. I want to work on them internally. They will get to the other piece eventually.
Well, help me on this one in closing. If we look at all this sexual harassment that's coming up in the news, what is taking it so long to come up?
Because women didn't have the power of the voice. They did not. It's always been there. But men who are in positions of power, control that arena. They just did.
So
this is not, the concept of sexual harassment is not new. And every woman that you see, every woman out there has had this experience in one form or another, some more egregiously than others. But it's very unfair for there to be this structure. Well, why didn't they speak up sooner? They had no power to speak up sooner. They've been given a space now where they can do that. And there's still so many women out there who still can't speak up, okay? Because there are consequences if they do. There are always consequences. And so some women have been given the space now to come out. And in that way, they're speaking not only for themselves, but they're speaking for other women who cannot speak out. I mean, you look at the women who have spoken out, there are consequences for them. And not every woman can take that consequence. Not every woman can do that. I hope this is a sea change that will allow all women who are having these experiences to come out. But it's just the beginning, and we have to see if this is a real sea change or if it's not.
And is this a woman's power move?
It should be a people power move. Men have a stake in this as well. How we train men, how we train boys to think about men, how we train people who are in positions of power not to abuse that power. Everybody has a stake in this. Women cannot fix this alone. This is a societal issue.
But it's been going on since biblical times.
Of course it has, because women alone cannot make that change. It requires everybody to do that. Everybody has to take responsibility for this one.
What would you like to say in closing?
Just that it's been an incredible journey, and Spelman has very much been a part of that journey for me. And I'm so glad that I had the experience of being there at Spelman at the time when I was there, because it was such a sea change time. And to be a witness to it, to be a part of it, has been an extraordinary experience, and I carry it with me every day. I carry it in my heart every day.
And on that note, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it.